Hi everyone, welcome to the stream today. It's Miriam and I'm back with another interview. This time I have the pleasure of chatting with Carissa Lynn, founder of The Bold Vocal, and she's going to be chatting with me about her entrepreneurial journey and answering questions to support the QUOKA project. Hey Carissa, how are you?
I'm awesome, Miriam. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Do you prefer Carissa Lynn?
You can just say Carissa, it's just fine.
Okay.
When I married, I just really liked how the three names sounded together. So my maiden name is Schrader, and it was like Carissa Renner with all these R's, crunchy, and but some people do say Carissa Lynn. I'm also a singer, a pro-vocalist, so sometimes that's how I get introduced when I'm singing, but Carissa is mostly what people call me.
Got it. Yeah, I just wanted to ask because I was like, oh, it's three. I love it.
It was like the least awkward name change I could come up with when I married. So I like it, actually. I've been loving having the middle name as part of my name, but it's just like kind of a new like professional identity. The three names, I'm really liking it.
Yeah, I like it too. It's beautiful. And I appreciate you taking time to chat with me today. Listening to the stories of entrepreneurs, founders like yourself really helps me kind of understand the problem that I'm facing so I can create an amazing product. And the questions that we chat about today are just helping me understand. So there's no right or wrong answers, or it's not a test or anything like that.
But how will I know if I passed?
Just by doing it, you pass.
Yay! All right.
Do you have any questions before we get started?
No, I'm excited to have a conversation, and I'm a pretty open book, so have at it.
Nice. Well, let's start off with just pulling up the boldvocal.podia.com so that people can kind of see the cool work that you're into, and then maybe you can tell us a little bit about what brought you to this point in your journey. Like, how did you get to where you're doing the work that you're doing?
Yeah.
I'll pull it up there so we can have it there while we're chatting.
Awesome. Well, as you can see, I work with the voice. It is my medium for not only my profession, which has been throughout my life singing, and it's also been my life's study. My greatest dedication to this point has been toward learning to sing and perform. But it's also been a really transformational piece of my life. I remember even as a really super young child, maybe 8, 9 years old, my parents divorced they didn't legally divorce till I was about 10 or 12, but they split when I was about 8. And there was just a lot of turmoil in that part of my life. And I do remember turning to singing for comfort. I would sing sometimes until I cried, or I would sing and it would make me feel happy, or it would kind of connect me to songs that, helped me understand how I was feeling. And sometimes I think I remember just wanting to be heard by God, just making so much noise with my voice, somebody hear me, I'm here, help. And so I realized even at a really young age that the voice is a super powerful tool, not just an instrument that we speak and sing with and communicate with, but also it does hold a lot of healing power. It holds a lot of transformational power. It holds a lot of power to create healthy relationships and boundaries, to manifest what you'd like to see happening in your life. So I really believe it is your most influential asset, and it's like a built-in magical healing self-expression tool that everyone has access to for free from the day they are born. So it is not only a musical instrument for me, but also an instrument of transformation. And so that's how this business has been developed. It started with singers, and as I continued down my own healing path and continued to delve into personal development and learn more and more about the changes I wanted to see represented in the world, and how I want women in particular, although I do work with clients of all genders and all gender identities, as those kind of core principles became clear to me, I started developing programs that were more focused on that and not only specific to singing.
Powerful stuff. I literally am getting chills while you're telling me about it, which is so rare. I just feel that like a lot of what you're saying is so true. And with you discovering this as a child and being able to just kind of wrap it around into a business is amazing.
Yeah, it's a really rewarding business for me. I love it. I'm a little obsessed with my business. As you're looking at my website, even I'm like, I maybe need to update or rearrange. You know, I'm getting all excited.
The websites are always a work in progress.
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah. I love this. I mean, I feel like coaching is something that I'm learning more about as I'm doing this research. And it seems to be like kind of like a middle area between like, you know, just being at it on your own and like kind of getting like a therapist kind of in a way, but like, I've never had a coach myself. What are some of the things that you would say? Like but I know of coaches, but I've never seen a coach like yours where you're using this metaphor, like I assume your clients are singing during sessions and things like that. Cause music to me is like really important. Like dancing always helps me kind of shift my mood. So I can see how this would be very powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So not all of my clients sing, but all of them are expected and asked to vocalize at some point. And the main difference between that is an important one, because you can get the benefits of singing without singing. And I think singing gets people really in their heads and immediately into some of the stories and some of the old belief patterns and systems that I want to help people do away with, which is, you know, you're meant to be seen and not heard, or many people come with a story about being told not to sing because they didn't sound good when they were a small person, or in, you know, high school, like the choir director's like, hey, maybe don't sing quite so loud. Right. Or like me, I was a kid who was always singing. And I often got told to just stop singing because it was annoying. And then I think, you know, we have other people who say, I can't carry a tune in a bucket. I'm tone deaf. I'm just not musical at all. And so I think when you ask someone to sing, immediately some kind of story about singing comes up. And if it's a singer, it's like, how good am I? Like there's kind of a perfectionism and a comparison. And like we draw these lines between being good at singing and being a good human. Because it's like such a personal entity, the voice. It's like you learned how to speak without, I mean, you were taught how to speak, but we all just learn it from being around people. But being taught to sing is a whole different animal. And so I think a lot of people feel like they should just be able to do it because they have a voice built in. And then it becomes like this thing about talent, and some people have natural gifts. And while there's some truth to that, singing is much like cooking. Like it's a science. There's scientific mechanisms happening. There's a methodology that can be taught. And tone deafness, just for the record, is very, very rare. It would be like where you wouldn't even enjoy listening to a song on the radio because the tones don't register. So it's like you wouldn't even recognize your favorite song or be able to differentiate it from songs you maybe like less or more. So tone deafness is a real thing, but it is so, so, so very rare. So anybody who's carrying that card right now, you can have my permission to just set it down and explore. So a lot of times what I'm doing in the coaching that is not singing, we do what's called sounding. And right there on the center of your screen is the guided vocal meditation. Mm-hmm. This walks you through the energy centers of the body. Some people call them chakras or chakras.
Yes.
And there is a particular sound. There is a Sanskrit sound, but I actually use Jonathan Goldman's method, who's a sound healer. And he has more of like a Western vowel sound that he uses. It's like o, u, e, you know, like really Western vowel sounds that we speak all the time, we're very familiar with. And the idea is to kind of feel the sound in the body. So you take some deep breaths, which is always a way to interact with your nervous system and start to manipulate it into a state of calm. Or you can also manipulate it into a state of energy, depending on what you're going for. And then each of these centers has a sound attached to it. And you can sound and kind of try to move your voice energetically through those spaces. And what I find is it's kind of just like I imagine it like a jackhammer. It's much gentler than that. Everything vocal should feel pretty gentle. So anything like any languaging around like force or strain or grip, we want to avoid that. But when I say jackhammer, I don't mean physically. I just mean kind of energetically. It's like loosening up all the gunk, and then like it's like taking a broom and sweeping it out and just being like, okay, let me move some of this old stuff. And some of the stuff that comes up relates to the voice. Some people are very freaked out by the idea of going, oh, or just moving the voice around. And other people are like, hey, this is kind of fun and weird. It's much like you mentioned, like somatic dancing. I think people have kind of similar reactions to that, where it's like taking up space, taking up, you know, creating sound and being heard. Like we have a lot of internal resistance to this in our culture. So some people just making sound alone is a big breakthrough. And for others, when they get into these spots, you know, certain emotions will start to arise, and then we can look at them and help them process through it as we go through these energetic centers. And then also beyond, you know, you mentioned coaching, therapy, all of that, to kind of address that point. I believe coaches kind of lay between an educator and a therapist. And the main difference is, because often I do end up in sort of a role of that trusted, safe space for people to unload their burdens, which is very much what therapists do. And like the obvious difference is accreditation and insurance, you know, regulation. But the more subtle differences between the two, I think, are one, my practice is very deeply steeped in spirituality. So we're working with your higher self. I use tarot as part of my guidance system. We use affirmative prayer. We use the intuitive voice and tapping into the intuition. We use modalities of moving energy such as orgasm and singing and screaming and laughing. And there's all these different things that in a typical therapy session would, I think, be pretty taboo. And then from the point of manifestation, I do ask clients to go into that deeper work of uncovering those beliefs, those former things that happened as young people, as our personalities were developing, of kind of looking at those sticky beliefs that are keeping us stuck. But as far as like going back and revisiting them, we only really do that when we're uncovering, when we're becoming aware of something that maybe they aren't already aware of, but I can kind of hear it as a pattern as I hear them speak. I'll say, oh, I keep hearing this one little nugget kind of repeat. And we'll kind of pull that thread a little bit until they kind of see, oh my gosh, this is all connected. But other than that moment, I really don't ask my clients to talk about the past all that much. Mostly because from the energetics of the nervous system and, you know, the quantum field, which, you know, take it or leave it, depending on how you feel about that kind of science, but I truly believe it. And in the quantum field, as far as like law of vibration, law of attraction goes, when we're putting ourselves back in those past states of trauma, the subconscious mind and body can't really tell the difference between then and now. So it's easy to put someone actually in a state of vibrating from that trauma and by talking about it over and over, rather than just seeing it and saying, oh, okay, that's here. Can I forgive this? Can I release this? Can I alchemize this somehow? Can I free myself of this? And then focus forward instead of backward.
Yeah. Very good. I mean, I'm so into it. I want to introduce you to some people and
Oh,
just
wonderful.
more with you. I'm so happy we met. Because I'm totally into all of this, especially the sound therapy alignment with the chakras is something that I'm working on, like stuff too. So it's I was going to ask you, which one of these freebies is the most popular from?
I would say the money resonance is by far the most downloaded, but I will go ahead and tell you that I created this several years ago, and if I were to do it now, I would update it in so many ways. So it's still really valuable. It's still really great. And I think people are always kind of like clicking on like, I want more money.
Right.
But as far as like what we just talked about, I would go for the guided sound meditation. Because that's exactly what we're talking about here. But the money one is by far the most popular. So I think it's pretty universal that people want more money.
Right, right.
And the voice can help you with that in so many ways.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when you're vibing high energy, then that stuff is coming to you. So I'm going to do that guided vocal meditation.
I love it.
Let's pull up my user research survey. Do you belong to any founder entrepreneur communities?
Yes. Just like Facebook community type things?
Sure. Facebook, in person.
Not much in person right now because this business really developed and took off during the pandemic. It was one of those moments in my life when it had started and there were all these seedlings and I was already doing the work, but when that shift happened, this really blossomed. So most of my stuff is online and most of my community is online because I really love the outreach it allows for me. I am in a couple really big groups like Women Helping Women Entrepreneurs, and I don't interact in those really giant groups as much. I think it's just kind of to keep a pulse on what's happening with people, but it's so large that it's kind of impersonal. Groups I interact with a little bit more are the Free Body Revolution, which is a group that now I'm supporting in an expert sort of role, but it was just a coach that I love to follow. Her name is Lindsay Crowther, and she is a plus size movement leader, and she is like all about, body love and self-acceptance and beautiful self-expression. And I just really love her energy. So I love her group a lot. I'm in a group called Visible AF, which has a lot to do with like bragging on. I think it's really tied a lot to the work in Mama Gina's book. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's a book called Pussy: A Reclamation. Gina Thomasauer. It's a great read, and it's all about reclaiming feminine power through kind of destigmatizing and losing shame around sexuality, and how that's connected to our power and our also our magnetism as female beings. So that's a good one, Visible AF. And then let me think if there's any others that are noteworthy. Yeah, that's kind of all that's coming up for me in this moment of places that I actually hang out. I'm in a lot of groups, of course, but there's only a few that actually, get the attention.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so now these statements are we're going to like true or false, or rather yes or no, probably is going to be better. Being an entrepreneur is fun.
Yes, true.
Being an entrepreneur is hard.
Also true.
Do you feel understood as an entrepreneur?
This one's tricky. I know we don't get to quantify these, so let's say no for the sake of fun.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel listened to as an entrepreneur?
Yes.
Do the people around you understand the problems and challenges that you face as an entrepreneur?
And that's where I mean no. So those two questions to me kind of overlapped. as far as my message and what I do and how I teach, I feel understood as an entrepreneur, but by people who aren't in this world, not so much. Because they're like, wait, what do you do? What is this thing?
Would you say that life as an entrepreneur is depressing at times?
Yes.
Do you feel pressure as an entrepreneur to be involved in communities online and or in person?
Yes.
Do you enjoy helping others and solving problems?
Absolutely, yes.
When it takes you a few days to reply to someone asking for your help, do you feel guilty?
No, not anymore.
Do you feel pressure to appear to look like you know what you're doing as an entrepreneur?
Where is the middle button?
I know.
Yes,
It's like
I will say yes. I feel that pressure, but I don't succumb to it. I think this is part of the work that we do, right? It's like, yes, there's pressure there, but I have a lot of grace for myself.
Beautiful. Do you always feel confident that you know what you're doing as an entrepreneur?
No.
Do you have people that you can speak to about your deepest thoughts and challenges about being an entrepreneur?
Yes.
Do you feel comfortable asking for help when you need it?
Yes.
What do you like best about being an entrepreneur?
The freedom. I mean, that's been the whole point of this, was time freedom, freedom of mobility, freedom to only do the kind of work that I love, freedom to work with only people that I love. I think that's why a lot of us go through, like, some of the questions you asked, there is a bit of an emotional roller coaster. It can feel lonely. It can feel overwhelming. You can feel lost. You can really, I think anything you've ever struggled with on the personal psyche level of, like, whether it be inadequacy or feeling like an outsider or, feeling too much, like you're just too much for people, like whatever that is gets really amplified in the business. So the only justification to me to, like, go and put yourself in that really tricky, tough position and do it anyway is the freedom that it provides. You get to build your own box instead of living inside of the societal one.
Totally. What do you like least about being an entrepreneur? What is the most challenging aspect of doing this work?
For me, it's having to wear all of the hats at once. I'm at a point in my business where I'm probably ready to start outsourcing and having a team, but also that creates, those fear of letting go. The control freak, the inner control freak comes out. Nobody can do this like I can do this. Or also scarcity, do I have enough money? Am I really making enough money to have a team? What if I can't sustain this? And I think another big challenge is to keep your eyes on the road, or like to wear those blinders and not like create from a place that's like, well, it looks like someone else is doing this thing that's successful, and therefore I should do something like that because it's working for them. So I think creating from like a place of sovereignty is also a big challenge, because I think it's very easy to start doubting yourself and looking outside for answers.
Yeah. If you were giving advice to an aspiring entrepreneur, what would you tell them they need to fulfill their full potential?
That's a great question. Just sinking into the energy of that for just a moment. I think self-trust and a foundation of learning to hold your word to yourself, because you don't have a boss to reply to. You don't have deadlines that are externally imposed on you. it really is that about cultivating this relationship with yourself, where it's like, if you say you're going to do something, you do it. And then understanding that sometimes when you fall short of the mark, that doesn't make you a terrible person. That, you have to offer like this balance of grace and commitment, because you're going to mess up, you're going to fail, you're going to flail around a little bit, you're going to take wrong turns. And so there has to be this like radical compassion and also radical responsibility at play simultaneously. And also you need great brand photos because they make you feel like the person you're trying to become.
Totally.
It's like future self comes through in that lens. And that to me is really important to see the future through someone else's eyes.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like you have everything that you need to fulfill your full potential as an entrepreneur?
Intrinsically, yes. Extrinsically, I would like a team. I would like some support in the physical realm.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
In the metaphysical realm, I am 100% equipped to do this job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I recently took the jump to hire virtual assistants, and it's been fantastic. I highly suggest it. Like,
yay! Thank you.
100%. It does, take time to train them, and I think someone like yourself who also really, I feel, cares about our world, because of the way that these virtual assistant structures are set up with the payment and stuff, you end up really struggling with that too. At least I did. But it makes a huge difference in their lives, and also it really helps, like, with all of the things that you're doing. I'm sure you're doing so much. So I recently made the jump, and it was really good.
Well, I'm really happy that you gave me that little nudge of go for it, because I really have been teetering on the edge. And yeah, it's a decision I've already made. It's just kind of like, okay, just do it,
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
And there's agencies out there that will help you find the people, because it's like, I know, just even finding time, like, what am I going to do? Like, really spend 5 hours on Fiverr right now? An
right.
Interview, like, and do all of that? Like, where would I do that? When would I do that? Yeah. So, yes. I think that business has exploded a lot during the pandemic as well, because everybody's virtual. So it's like, okay.
It's awesome. I mean, really, the pandemic is not awesome. Let's be clear. That's horrible, catastrophic. And, we will see the impact of that for many years to come. But I do think that there is quite a positive impact that, in the technology side of things that has come about, and also the way we care about each other and the way we think about how often we're washing our hands, and like, how are we getting our food delivered, and all these things have come about that just a novel way of looking at life. And I think there's definitely some positive side effects amongst all of the, heartache and loss and the absolute horror that this has been.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the silver lining is there when you look for it. Mm-hmm. Okay. What about when you need information, you want to learn something new about your business or just general entrepreneurship? Maybe you need support with a challenge your business is facing. Where do you first go for the answer?
Well, where do I first go? Probably to a book or a podcast, something like a free resource somewhere. But what I've kind of begun to learn over time is that I get the most value out of investing rather than freebies, even though freebies are amazing because it gives you the chance to interact with people's energy and make sure they're right for you before you do any financial commitments toward people's programs. But I definitely find the most support in mentorship. And for me, that looks like a business mentor who's helping me structure, who's helping me create goals. I think that's one of the more overwhelming things is because we have so many layers around the business. It's like, how much money do you want to make is such a loaded question, because there's like all these layers of beliefs of like, well, how much money do I think I deserve to make? Or how much money am I capable of even imagining? Like some people, and me included, it's like, you know, it's like, I want $1 million business. Well, I can't even conceptualize $1 million. I don't know what that feels like at all. It's so far from myself and my truth and my nervous system that that's an unrealistic goal. So I could set that goal, but I'm never going to get there, right? Because I don't even know what that looks or feels like. And there's a part of my inner being that's rejecting that as nonsense as soon as I say it. So, you know, having the mentors to help you step back a little bit. Okay, well, what would $100,000 business look like? And then you're like, whoa, that kind of feels big too. And you're like, well, you know, 6 figures feels big, then 7 figures is not in the realm of possibility right now. Right. So then it's like, okay, well, what does, you know, 60,000 a year feel like? Like bringing it back and having people kind of reverse engineer goals with you, and then give you the mindset and bodily, like subconscious coaching that you need in order to like get rid of those beliefs, because we all come from these family resonances with money, with business, with our self-worth, with our visibility, and all of these are part of being an entrepreneur. You're really putting yourself out as a brand, and you're asking yourself to be seen, to be heard, to be worthy. And all of those little demons and red flags will absolutely come up. So I think having support when that happens is really, really key. So for me, I do have like a business mentor. I also have a spiritual kind of team of people. I don't have a singular mentor, but I have a spiritual healer, like a tarot reader, and some other people in my circle that kind of help me deal with the energetics of my business. And then I also have like personal mentors that are just, they're here for me and helping me. And that includes a therapist. So like I said earlier, there's a fine line between the two, and therapy is really good. I'm actually even on an antidepressant. Like I'm a holistic believer of East meets West. You know, I don't think that they need to be exclusive of one another. I think whatever you can put in your toolbox to make you capable of coming to the next level of you, capable of being that next embodiment is right for you. So.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that vulnerability.
Of course.
So, I mean, it sounds like it's ongoing, you know, this process, but when you go to one of your mentors, or maybe if you turn to the book or the podcast, how much time would you say on average when, you know, you're searching for this information or the support that you need, does it take you to get it?
You're right. It is ongoing. And I think it depends on the specific information, but generally I'm a pretty quick learner. I think most people in general are like the information, like I said, often the information is not what you're seeking. So this is kind of a loaded question. Let's say 1 to 10 hours. Let's just say that for the sake of your quantitative question. And then for anybody who's watching, or just if you want the gray area in which I live, I just don't think the actual information is what you're seeking often. Like, I can seek how to like edit a video and post it, you know, or I can and Google things like that. But I think often what we're seeking when we have a big question like that is like more of a validation or more of permission or a hug. So I think, you know, sometimes the emotional and unseen barriers, we think that they're like, well, I need to update my website. Like even when we were looking, you know, earlier at my website, I was like, oh man, I need to tweak that. And it's like, no, the energy is there. Like my website, it represents me well, even though it's not perfect, right? So it's like, I could spend a ton of time like, well, how do I load this GIF here? And how do I have the perfect copywriting to bring the ideal client in? And how do I SEO and get my website seen by more eyes? But the truth is like often we're just seeking like, is it good enough? Am I good enough? Do people like this? Do people like me? Am I worthy?
Yeah.
So sometimes those kinds of questions take a lot longer to answer than SEO Googles.
Right, just a process thing that, yeah. Okay, so now we're going to go into some mental health questions. And I know we're also coming up on time here, but, take your time with the answering. How would you rate your overall mental health on a scale from 0 to 10?
I would put it at a 9.
How does...
But again, help. There's help from my friends, which I appreciate. I'm grateful for.
Mm-hmm. How does your response to that question make you feel on a scale from 0 to 10?
Oh, 10. It's been a long road.
Mm-hmm.
It feels great to be able to answer that.
Now, out of this list, you can choose as many as you want. What aspects of your life are negatively affected when you have felt less than great mentally?
Oh man, pretty much all of them. Confidence, social life, eating habits, activity, sleep, budget, romantic. Yeah, I mean, all of them, really. It's pretty much all of them.
Pretty much all. Should I check them off? Or?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, employment, like I've never lost employment, but it's hard to show up sometimes, But yeah, absolutely. Those things that aren't mandatory, they fall by the wayside really quick when my mental health is suffering.
Mm-hmm. Now we're going to go through this list here and decide if they have a positive, negative, or neutral effect on your mental health. Social media?
Now I will say positive, but it was not always that way.
Mm-hmm. The news?
Negative.
Family?
Depends on who.
Yeah.
Overall, I'll say positive.
Friendships?
Positive.
Work?
Positive.
Volunteering, giving back?
Positive.
Romantic relationships?
Positive.
Which has the most positive effect on your mental health?
I would say giving back. I don't do a lot of volunteer work, but my work is very rewarding like that. And I think anytime you can give of yourself, it fills you back up.
Mm-hmm. How many hours per week do you spend engaging in the activity that has the most positive effect on your mental health? So how many hours per week do you spend volunteering and giving back?
Maybe I should change that to work. We'll see. Okay, so I would say about 10 to 12 probably.
Okay. How or what do you need? What do I write? How or what do you do to help support or manage your mental health?
Yeah, so I have meditation, meditation, movement, like exercise, and I would say writing.
Do you use any websites or applications to help support manage your mental health?
I used to use the Calm app a lot. I feel I've outgrown that a bit, but meditations like YouTube, that kind of things.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me about a time you felt mentally unhealthy or imbalanced?
Absolutely. This was probably in 2016. I had left singing for a while. Oh man, this is like a long story. We'll try and keep it short. So back before then, in 2011, my boyfriend died in a skydiving accident. And in the process of grieving him, I really didn't, I went through like the surface steps of grief that you are forced through in the moment, but I didn't really do any of the healing work after that. And so I kind of just picked up and carried on with my life. I got very busy. And kind of avoided my feelings for a very long time. And at one point that led me to kind of blowing up my singing career and making decisions that were pretty self-destructive as far as romantic relationships and financial decisions, and other just life choices that were kind of leading me down a path toward, tanking essentially. And I ended up quitting singing altogether. I learned to cook. I've always enjoyed cooking. So I went and worked in restaurants as a line cook. And that was somewhat therapeutic for me, but also the culture of the kitchen was really detrimental to my mental health. We were drinking pretty heavily. We weren't keeping normal hours. We were up all night at the bar after work, using drugs, sleeping a lot during the day, and kind of being just really hard on my body. And again, really avoiding anything that looked like health, healing, recovery, or facing up to any of life's challenges. So that led me into a relationship where I just found myself completely anxious, and toggling back and forth between anxiety and depression. And then, yeah, it was just, I had everything. It looked really good on paper, and I was very unhappy. And so, I was seeing a lot of the self-sabotaging patterns come out, a lot of infidelity, drinking, overeating, just really checking out in any way possible. And yeah, there came a point when I kind of realized that, like, if I kept that up, that I would ruin my life and probably some people's lives around me. And at that point, I decided to leave the relationship, quit cooking, go back to singing, get therapy for the first time, even after my boyfriend died, which I probably should have done that, but I didn't. I wasn't ready. And so it wasn't until 5 or 6 years later that I really felt ready to handle the grief in an embodied way. So.
Would you say that what triggered this mentally unhealthy time, as you look back on it, was the death of your boyfriend, or something else?
That was certainly the catalyst that led to the culmination of all of this. And yes, I do believe that was probably the most transformational experience in my life, was his death. And that part, there's part of me that even believes he was gifted to me on that timeline in order to help me. But, when I started doing the therapy work, and when I started unpacking everything that was there, it was like the issues that were manifesting in these ways were much older than my relationship with him. The fact that I was dating a devil at all stemmed back to, my dad being a pro race car driver and leaving the family when I was a really young person. So it's like seeking this male validation from the daredevil male masculine figure. There was a lot there to dig into from my childhood and from my past, that I just hadn't ever touched. And I think that was just the match that hit the haystack, was unfortunately that loss. But I'm grateful to it in many ways, and also it was the most devastating and life-changing event I've lived through to date.
Yeah. Yeah. Life is wild, man.
It sure is.
Like, I'm not just consciously like, oh, okay. Like, thank you for sharing that. Like, yeah, I've been hearing.
It's a big part of my story. It's definitely something that, like I said, I'm never going to be grateful that he's gone or that he died, but I do believe that, like, that was meant for me to live through, and I am grateful for the experience of that, because it's led me to such a beautiful place. Such a beautiful place.
Yeah. Yeah. Who do you talk to about your mental health? Family members, friends, counselors?
Yeah, I think my husband, my coaches, and my counselors. I think my husband, I just check in so he knows what's going on with me. He's not super great at holding space for it, but I have to like just be like, hey, I'm having a day. I'm not going to be like able to be myself. And that way he can kind of adjust his expectations just a little bit. But yeah, a therapist for sure. And then also, yeah, some friends. I have some friends that have similar stuff going on that I can confide in. But absolutely, if it was a quality of life issue that was ongoing, it would be a therapist or a psychiatrist even, since I am medicated.
So how often would you say you speak to them?
Right now, only like once a year or every 6 months, because I have gotten to a place that's really even keel. But when I was actively in therapy and reaching this point, we were meeting twice a month.
And how do you talk to them? In person, virtual, phone calls, text message?
It was in person until the pandemic, and then it was virtual, which I would be very comfortable continuing on in that way. Although there's something about the office, like as soon as I walk in, I'm like, whoa.
What support do you need that you're not receiving to help manage your mental health?
I think it would be really lovely, and I want to be careful how I word this, as we were just talking about my spouse, because he's an amazing spouse. I think he has a really hard time understanding it because he does not have the same build, mental build as I do. So I think maybe just more education for the people who are in the lives of people who have mental health and wellness issues. I think it's very hard for him to empathize with me when I'm having an episode. And that creates a lot of tension between us, because I want him to like respond just right and be the person I need in that moment. But I don't think he really knows how, because he's never experienced it, which is good. That's a good thing.
Yeah. That's powerful. How much would you expect to pay for a platform that did that educated people that were not aware?
It's interesting because it's a product for someone else. So I don't know. I think people who are in those positions may not like. I'm not sure that he wants to be educated on it. I want that for him, but you can't do things for other people. So I would say it would probably need to be a pretty easy point of entry, so as not to create more resistance with people expecting that. Maybe $50 a month or less, because we don't want to create that barrier of entry that makes it like, well, I'm not paying for that, especially if there's already resistance there, or just like, I don't need that. Why do I need that? I'm not sure that the people who, like I said, it's not for me. As far as being able to access a therapist for myself on a monthly basis, I would say like maybe $100 a month to be able to kind of book an appointment here and there would be awesome. I think traditionally therapy is very expensive with good reason. But it is, again, it can be kind of a barrier to treatment even, because the price is not always affordable for everyone. So it would be nice to have something that's pretty accessible.
When thinking about the mental health of people that how do you think most of them would rate their mental health on a scale from 0 to 10?
Oh, like maybe a 7.
Okay.
I think people are struggling a little bit.
Do you want to be added to my email newsletter? No pressure at all.
Of course. Thank you.
Okay. I just need to know to be able to close the the survey. I'm like, should I?
Of course.
No. Okay. Well, we're at the 30-minute, the 1 hour of I blocked your calendar for an hour. So I really I feel like, I have more questions and things, but, I want to be respectful of your time.
Of course.
Anything else that we should get out there?
Yeah, I think I would love to put an end cap on this and just sort of tie it back to the beginning conversation we were having about the voice and all of that. And I think everyone has access to these concepts we're talking about getting past grief, getting past worthiness issues, getting past isolation, depression, anxiety. It's all, the voice is such a powerful tool, be it through speaking about your experience to a therapist or a coach, or reaching out for help from a friend. Like, speaking up and advocating for yourself is such a powerful, it's literally life or death for some people. So I just want to encourage everyone to find that courage to just speak a few words. I need help. Like, 3 words is all it takes, and then when you feel ready, safe, and open enough to delve into why you need help or how you got there. I'm like tearing up talking about this.
Awesome.
You have resources, it's so important. It's just sometimes finding your voice is so challenging when you feel like you're drowning or grasping to just stay at that baseline. So I just really encourage you to just find those 3 words, I need help, or please help, support me, whatever it sounds like for you. And then also know that when you get to a place that's a little healthier, the voice is there to help you create boundaries with people who are maybe not so good for you. Create boundaries with yourself, honor your own word, start to listen to your own intuition, your intuitive voice. What is your gut telling you? That's a voice that's important to listen to. Your creative voice can help you through so much, writing poetry, creating art, creating dance, creating books, podcasts, music, whatever, writing songs about your experiences. These are ways to alchemize and transmute all of those experiences in life that we all get banged up, we all get bruised up, we all lose our way. There's no shame in it. So just know that your voice is always there for you to help process and move past and start to move forward. So that's what I have to say.
Beautifully said, and very important work that you're doing. It's an honor to have met you, and I'm excited to just grow on this journey with you and build these billion-dollar businesses, Carissa, if you want.
Woo!
Yes.
All
Bring
right.
it in. Yes.
Thank you so much, Miriam. This was awesome.
Thank you for taking the time and just for the work that you're doing. I can tell that just people that work with you and pass through your energy field, I'm sure are left with being just a more clear version of who they are, and through just interacting with you. So thank you for being you.
Absolutely. Thank you for your time.
We'll see you guys later. Thanks.
Bye-bye.